All right, we'll continue where we left off, and I can just get a screen back up. Right, this is around the amendment that Council approved the updated caps for swimming pool admission fees to $7 adult and $5.50 concession, and Table 2 adjusted accordingly effective from 1 July 2024, moved by Councillor Barrett, second by Councillor Hancock. Now, I think there's some information coming back from officers. Kathy?
Yes, thank you, councillors. The change in prices has an overall impact on the forecast revenue of a decrease in revenue of 3%, and CLM are accepting of that decrease, given that this is a bit of an art, not a science. We don't know how many numbers are coming through, so that's the overall impact.
All right. Okay, thank you. Sorry, can you just repeat it? Some of my colleagues didn't hear you.
Sorry. With the new charges, the overall forecast decrease in revenue is 3%, and CLM have accepted that, given that this is a bit of an art rather than a science, that's acceptable. It's not very different to what we'd forecast with the other proposal.
Okay. Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand this. So, do you mean a decrease of 3% in the 500,000+ that was anticipated to be collected? It won't be an overall decrease in revenue of 3%, surely?
No, the proposal that you have in front of you, we've run the figures based on the single entries, and it is a bit difficult because we have the concession rates up there, but the numbers do vary. But based on just that, there would be a 3% difference.
So it'd be 3% less than what was proposed.
3% less than what was proposed. 97% of the revenue. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Wood.
You know, I'm still working on the maths here. So to be very clear, on page 68, it says that CLM have recommended the council increase the caps for pool entry fees by 12.5%. So are you suggesting that this would be an increase of 8.5%, or are you suggesting that this would be an increase of 97% of that 12.5%, which would be, my goodness, which would be 12.1% increase on this year's fees?
On average, 12.1% as you've calculated.
Thank you.
All right, I'm glad we've cleared that up. Okay. Councillor, would you like right of reply? Councillor Barrett.
Just briefly to acknowledge you, Mr. Mayor, for giving us not only lunch, but the time for officers to give us some numbers, and to the officers for giving us some numbers, and to CLM for being accommodating of that approach. I think what we have here is simply the principle of whether we ensure that people that have a concession and a priority around that, we go a little bit easier on them, and we do rebalance that cost against the full fare for adults. So I'd ask for your support. Thank you.
Excellent. Vote, colleagues. That is passed, 15 votes for and none against. So that's the amendment. We now need to do the substantive. All right, so the substantive is council approve the updated caps for swimming pool admission fees as below, effective from 1 July 2024. And you see them all listed there. You don't need, okay, we will vote, please. That is passed 14 votes for and 1 against. Okay. All right, we move through to number 11, which is around the Ashurst camper van dump station and a Custom Street proposal. Invite Aaron Phillips and Kathy back to the table. Page 71 of your papers, councillors.
Good afternoon, Mr Mayor and councillors. We take the report as read. Just there's a couple of little matters that we were coming back to you in the report. It noted we'd advise whether the costs could still be completed within the original budget. We're pleased to say that it can. We can still complete this job within the budgets that are allowed this year.
And the second matter was on the safety of vehicles exiting from Custom Street. So we have had a safety audit completed. The safety audit concluded that there is some risk there. That safety audit has been referred to the Chief Engineer, and as a road controlling authority, PNCC will make a decision about whether, for example, right turns are to be banned and therefore making people go down to the roundabout or signage, but that is now in the hands of the Chief Engineer.
I just note that you've done a reasonable amount of consultation down there and got a reasonably positive response, including right out the owner right out where the proposal is right outside their property. I note that one wasn't in favour. Can I just ask what were the main concerns?
Mr Mayor, those are covered for you in Table 1, which starts under 4.1, page 5 of the report. We raised a number of issues. He was concerned about the odour from the dump station, but we're comfortable that those are modern dump stations are fairly well managed, that if there is any issues we can pop it into the regular monitoring and cleaning program that we do through the team that look after the toilets. They could check on the dump station and make sure that that's in good nick. Similarly, that covers the second point about potential spills. There was a suggestion that the dump station would be better situated on the other side of the road. While that looked good on paper, it would involve potentially purchasing or leasing land off LINZ, which could be a lengthy process and would probably put at jeopardy the MB funding of $100,000, which we're due to have spent by the 31st of October. And we didn't think it was a significant enough matter to warrant change of approach. And then Kathy's already just mentioned the safety of the intersection was another matter he raised.
Great. Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you both. Can you just remind me, please, Custom Street, is that still going to be it's not going to be a through road?
That's correct. It will become a cul-de-sac.
Thank you. Just wanted to confirm. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Aaron, for waiting. We have the recommendation there to council that we proceed with the construction of the camper van dump station on the northern side of Custom Street in Ashurst, as shown in option 1. I'm happy to move that. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Look, councillors, I think this has been a long time coming. We've had a couple of attempts at this, and I think it is the right place. I had a little bit of a look myself the other day, and I think it is the right location for this sort of activity. It's close enough to our arterial routes too, and our facilities like the Ashurst Domain and the campground and everything there. So I think it's, in hindsight, it's an excellent choice. Being no other speakers, ask you to vote, please. That has passed 15 votes for and none against. All right, we're on to the next one. Sorry, I've got having a memory lapse there. Right, number 12, which is International Relations and Education Plan for 24-25. I'll invite Gabrielle and KC to the table. Welcome. Page 81 of your papers, councillors. Can you just turn your microphone on, please? No, other side. Right? Thank you.
Kia ora, councillors. Sorry about that. Allow me to introduce once again our International Relations and Education Advisor, Kunal Chonka, co-presenting with me today and assisting in answering any questions with regards to international education. I will take the report as read, but since the submission of the report, we have got another good news to add to it today. So following up from the mayoral visit to Taipei's Smart City Summit in March, we have made some very good connection with NZTE, and therefore I want to make sure that I get the acronyms right here. Therefore, we have been contacted by the NZTE New Zealand Trade Enterprise Office to collaborate with them in organising or in welcoming a NZTBC plus CIECA delegation trip and program in August 2024. This is specifically in the area of technology, trade and business, but also there is a potential for education collaboration coming out from that conversation. So that is just the good news I would like to add to the annual plan report in front of you. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabrielle. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Gabrielle, KC. Just a couple of questions. In 3.10, you've listed some of the events that councillors regularly invited to attend, or Palmerston North regularly invited to attend, but I notice you've missed out the St Patrick's Day reception, which we're regularly invited to attend, so I wondered if you'd like to consider adding that to your list.
Apologies. Actually, we are invited to many events, and if we list all of the events we get invited to, the report could probably go to much longer, so I only listed a few examples.
I do understand, but some are more important than others, of course. And then just moving on to the list of activities that you've got at the end of what's planned for the next 12 months. I see that there's one international visit planned, I think in May, isn't it? I can't remember. Sorry, I'll just get to it. May, overseas mission to the US. So are we expecting that that will involve council staff or elected members?
At this stage, Councillor, we have not started the planning for this trip. It does have some very good reasoning behind it. For example, connecting with the new mayor of Missoula, our longest standing sister city, and supporting our international education sector in the NAFSA International Conference there. But that is purely a good reasoning, but the planning for it has not started.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Gabrielle and Casey, for the report. And I know we've been asking for this for a long time, so thank you for getting it to us. But just as a new report, I did wonder, when I was reading through 6, the annual plan itself, I wondered if there was potential to include some quantitative measures in there, as well as the narrative measures you've proposed. So, for example, in the first one there, you talk about increasing international exchange. and measuring that success by a narrative measure. But it just seemed to me if we're trying to increase something, we should have a baseline and we should be able to say how far we've increased that from a baseline that we already know. Would that be possible to look at some quantitative measures?
Through the chair, thank you for your question. We did consider putting some measurable and more number-based measure in the report. However, after consulting with our colleagues in other international relations offices in different city councils, and also our colleagues in MFET, there isn't anything like that they put in measuring their work. Also, I can give you one example. For example, the Waseda Group Study Program that we have managed to bring the opportunity to our local schools. We have created that opportunity for the schools. However, there has been some concern by our local schools about their capacity. So sometimes just because we present the opportunities doesn't mean that our local providers actually want to take up on that. And it doesn't mean that we don't bring in opportunities. So it's a little bit difficult to measure our success based on numbers that we are not in control of. That's why we have come back to the narrative description of how success is measured for us.
And I'm very happy with the narrative measure, but I do think, Mr. Mayor, that there should be some quantitative numbers in there. And if the officer's advice is that they don't want to do that, I will move an amendment or an additional recommendation that we include some quantitative measures, because how else do we... Anyway, I'm getting into comment, sorry. And I did have another question, which was about... So you go into a list of planned activities, which is very interesting. And I did wonder whether that should actually be part of the plan, because I would like to see which outcomes they were mapped against. So I wonder whether there's room to say what the outcomes are you're trying to achieve from those activities.
Through the chairs. So it is a little difficult to list the activity against just one outcome, because when we do organize events, we would measure them, or the event against multiple outcomes. So the question was for us to how best to present the events that we are planning against the expected outcomes. So we decided that it was best to present the goals and the outcome against that, but the activities are actually bringing in multiple outcomes.
Okay, thank you. And then the last list in there about contingent invitations, you've already mentioned one of those in your discussion at 6.3. I wondered where in the plan those would sit, because there's a finite budget, and I'm sure you're going to have to make some trade-offs in order to be able to do, is the budget big enough to do all of those things that are in this plan, or do you have to make some trade-offs?
So the plan activities are somewhat compulsory for us, because most of them, for example, the Festival of Cultures, it is an annual event for the city. So we're not going to use that as a trade-off for anything else. However, whenever there is an opportunity presented to us, we would, as also said in 6.2, we have been developing a process to evaluate the opportunities that comes our way, and measure that against all the goals and outcomes that we have prioritized for this particular financial year. And if the opportunity presented outweighs one of the less prioritized planned event, then we can have room for some trade-off there. Additionally, there are opportunities that come to us at no cost. So we would also like to take that into consideration as well when we make decision.
By no cost, you mean no financial cost?
No financial cost.
But there would obviously be opportunity cost of taking up options.
It depends. It varies from opportunity to opportunities. So, for example, opportunities could come directly to the City Council and inviting elected members or council officers. But sometimes opportunities do come directly to our stakeholders. For example, they could be inviting our economic development agency or our businesses. So it really varies on what we actually receive each time.
Okay, thank you, Gabrielle.
Councillor Finlay.
Yeah, I'm just looking at your list of outcomes, and I've always wondered, about these trips overseas, and some of them are good and some of them, are junkers, but I would like to see some outcomes that are actually, measurable. When you say that you promote the city to international partners, et cetera, well, everyone does that. But I'd like to see some actual outcomes, like a school got extra students, or Massey got extra students, or a business created an opening in China or Missoula or somewhere. Do we get actual outcomes, or are they just fluffy outcomes sort of things?
We do get, through the chair, we do get outcomes. They are not fluffy, as you can see from the letter received from Food HQ.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, as I explained earlier, at times when we bring opportunities to the city, it doesn't mean that the local stakeholders would have the capacity to take on those opportunities. And that comes at the example of the schools. So at the moment, the overall comment that we receive from our schools is that, well, thank you for bringing in a lot of interest in sending us short-term students from international markets. However, we only can accept student groups that stay here for 4 weeks or longer. So if we bring in opportunities for 3 weeks or something like that, they wouldn't be open to that sort of opportunities. But I can give you one outcome that could possibly be a tangible that you are after. So for example, the MOU that we have been facilitating between Food HQ and the East China Agricultural Science and Technology Center. So in a couple of weeks' time, the Kunshan delegation is going to visit us, and they will finally sign that MOU. And out of that MOU, my understanding from Food HQ is that one business from Kunshan has already reached out to Food HQ asking for specific collaboration in terms of research, but also trading opportunity through
That is because we went there and we had a
That was
visit there?
because we went there, we visited the center, and we set up all the connection for Food HQ and the other stakeholders in agri-tech sector.
Okay. I'd just like to see a little bit more of that sort of stuff, that we're not just spending money for nothing.
So do we. We love seeing that happening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Gabrielle and Casey. Ngā mihi. Just in terms of, I'm looking at the bottom of page 88 and the top of page 89, and from the SWOT analysis, you identified some weaknesses, particularly around limited resources. And is that with regards to staffing, or is it having a reasonable budget available to achieve things that you've identified as wanting to achieve? And in addition to that, 4.7, communication challenges may arise when dealing with representatives from different countries and cultures. Would that also include having the ability to pay for an interpreter in that area?
Through the chair, yes, that is an excellent question. So first of all, 4.5 talks about limited resources. That comes, that mentions the limited in personnel. We are a team of 2. So if we have, for example, in a couple of weeks' time, we have the Kunshan delegation. We also have invited the embassy, and there has been indication from our Latin American embassies who might be attending as well. So we would have the 2 people looking after multiple delegates with different schedule as well. So those are the things that do stretch our capacity a little, quite a bit actually. Limited budget, as I mentioned in 4.5, there is no explicit funding earmarked for international education, and we do have very good connections with Education New Zealand, with all the education providers, and when opportunities come, it does limit the ability to respond immediately or to the number of responses that we can actually take on from time to time. In 4.7, talking about language barrier and cultural competency, this is because we do have very good network and connections with the diplomatic corps down in Wellington, and we're talking about a group combined of multiple countries. My understanding is over 40 that we are regularly keeping in touch with. So at times, we would love to be able to do a little bit more for them. For example, our brochure about Palmerston North, we currently only have an English version. We would love to have it in multiple languages to be able to promote our city better. But as you have already mentioned, Deputy Mayor, there is limited budget for translation services, and that also comes with hosting delegations from different countries too.
Thank you. Sorry, Your Worship. Just in terms of hosting, and I'll probably mention this in comments as well, but with regards to hosting, do we have a procedural sheet that can identify how we host? So we've got visitors coming in from overseas. Do we have a template of what we do when we host people? And are there different levels, or do we just wing it when they come?
Through the chairs, we have probably moved away from wing it kind of actions and have put in protocols in place. So we do have priority when it comes to hosting delegations. It is mostly based on the diplomatic blue book of protocols. So when delegations come, what are the most appropriate protocols? We will follow that. And then on top of that, we have prioritized relationship because as we've just pointed out that our budget is limited, so we have to be very precise and targeted with the way we allocate our budget. So Of course, when it comes to international partnerships, we have our long-term partners, and then we have our strategic partners, and then we also have the exploring partnership.
Kaupai. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
All right, we've got two recommendations there. Are the mover and seconder okay to do both of them? Great, we'll keep that nice and tidy. So, recommendation to council, that council receive international relations education annual plan 24-25 presented on the 5th of June 2024. The Chief Executive develop quantitative success measures in addition to the qualitative measures proposed in the International Relations and Education Annual Plan 24-25. So that's Councillor Bowen, second by Councillor Wood. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, first, thank you to the staff for developing this first iteration of the annual plan. It's something we've been asking for a while. I get that that's been an additional thing to try and get your head around on top of the busy jobs that you both do, and I think we've made a fair stab at it for the first time round. I would like to see us look at some tangible numeric measures of what we do, if only because it helps us to define the activity that we've got to now. And I recognise there's been a huge amount of development in this space over the last 3 or 4 years, probably post-COVID. There's been a lot goes on, and I think if we want to see the value of this investment, we have to know where we've come from to be able to measure that progress. Can absolutely accept the comment from the officer that this isn't an approach taken in other councils, but I don't think that necessarily means that we can't do it. And I look forward to seeing what the CE can do to strengthen the reporting that's coming back to us. I think my only other concern in the report is about kind of understanding the restrictions of the budget that sits within this activity of council. There's a very long list of planned activities, which all have costs, some of which we know, some of which I couldn't tell you what they are, and an opportunity cost of the things we don't do because we're doing those things. And then I know, and that includes one international visit, as Councillor Johnson drew our attention to, but then the list of other contingent activities of another 8 international visits sitting underneath that planned activity. They might or might not happen, but they're certainly not going to all be free. And that would have an impact on budgets. And I think what I want the plan to help me understand is the trade-offs we have to make to deliver the best international relations programme we can within the budget that's allocated to that. And so, well, I think this is a great first step. I think there is more work to do in helping to give us a really comprehensive picture of the opportunities and the costs, the value and the partnerships that sit out there in this space for us. So more work to be done, but a good start, I think. Thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just speak very briefly to say, agree with Councillor Bowen's comments. Thank you very much for the report. I've thoroughly enjoyed reading it. And just to sort of temper the recommendation a little bit, I'm not expecting that every single one of these will have quantitative measurements. So, for example, strengthen and enhance the diplomatic footprint of Palmerston North. Of course, that's going to be a qualitative measurement because that's not something you can necessarily put a number to. But foster economic diversification and growth by facilitating new connections for local businesses, that can very easily be quantitatively measured through a good CRM system that says, here's the opportunities we passed on. And I fully hear what the officers are saying, that those businesses and those organisations might not take us up on that opportunities. Perfectly fine. But measuring what we've done to generate that pass on is something I don't envisage as being a particularly difficult or complicated thing to do, that we can then set a target of. We would like to do 10 of these a year, or 5 of these a year, or 15, or whatever it ends up being and what is most appropriate. So I'm not suggesting here that everything will have quantitative measures, because I fully appreciate the work that goes on in the international space is complicated and isn't all about an X dollar figure result at the end of it. But to say that there are no quantitative measures we could give for the space, I'd push back against, which is why I was happy to second Councillor Bowen's recommendation. I am a cautious supporter of the International Relations Programme, and the best thing we can do to shore up support for this programme is to show evidence of it working. And so I think this is very much a recommendation for those that fully, wholeheartedly support this. This helps evidence that. And for those who are more cautious like me, this also helps evidence that. So I would see this as something that all councillors could get behind.
Councillor Harper online. No, we can't hear you. Yes.
Okay, I just want to say well done to Gabrielle and Casey for a great report. I think putting together the first annual plan for international relations and the international education is a really great first step. And I think it's been done very, very well, and hats off to you both. I think doing the SWOT analysis was a very good first start, and it's great to see that SWOT analysis. And I agree with what Councillor Wood said in terms of some of these outcomes are going to be a bit fluffy, and some are going to be a bit more qualitative. So it's going to be a bit of hit and miss on both sides, but well done to what you have put forward, and it's great to see a first start of this, and we're great to see more to come. So thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Look, I think around the measures, I think it's a really good idea. I think we can put something in there, international students or international educations, something that can be measured. Business opportunities, as you said, the CRM could be put together there around who's been linked to who. Research is another one. I know that is happening at the moment. And even the tourism dollars that are spent comes from international credit card spends is something that is generated as well. But look, there's I think it's, look, you don't know what you don't know. And look, Vietnamese students, I can remember one of Councillor Johnson asking about that. Well, we've got 20 students arriving at ETC, at the language school, but we all don't know about that. So it's good to actually have those things put into to some sort of spreadsheet so we sort of know what is going on. There's actually a lot going on, but you do need to know. So I'm supportive of what's been recommended by Councillor Bowen and Councillor Wood as well. And thanks to Casey and Gabrielle for putting together things there. Just on the contingencies as well, we get invited to a lot of things. Reality is we'll probably be going to none or possibly one if somebody else pays for it. But in all honesty, you can't go to everything, and you just got to draw the line somewhere on it. Okay, Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I stand as a strong supporter of international relations, and as a councillor that's been to many events here and in the capital, I think it's fantastic for the city, and as a city that's the next closest to our capital, I think it has great benefit for us, and with our university, international college, goes hand in hand. Echo Councillor Hapata, congratulations for the report. Congratulations on the Food HQ. Those are sort of results which you'll see flowing on in the years to come, I'm sure. And as somebody that's seen firsthand the big groups coming to our city and travelling a huge distance to come and see us, that's impressive stuff. And we certainly are a minnow in the scheme of things. And if we can make something work, then certainly all for that. Thank you.
Councillor McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add my voice to the debate, fully in support of the recommendation before us, and I think it's something just adding the quantitative sort of success measures will also go a long way in strengthening the reporting that we're getting as well at the moment. And also, just want to give a huge thanks to Casey and Gabrielle for the work that they're doing. I know it's not easy doing it under very constrained budgetary environment as well when compared to other councils. So I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing in creating an environment that enables our city to be internationally connected, and good work on what you have done with this report. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
And the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too am adding my thanks to Gabrielle and Casey for their wonderful work, and wish to acknowledge the fact that in this area there is a huge amount of potential and opportunity. I realise that there are restrictions on the resources that you do have, but I don't think that we could go any lower in terms of the resourcing that we have. I don't think we could just in terms of realising their ability to fulfil their role and to do the research or the necessary collation of tasks that are set out in their strategic plan and the annual plan. I had the good fortune of being involved when we had a group here a fortnight ago from Hefei, having been over to China with the schools, with Boys High, Girls High, Whakarongo Primary School, Awatapu and QEC. And it was great to be able to host them. And I think on reflection on evaluation, the Principal Māori advisor, myself and Kuia, were able to say that possibly, because with these two they're doing it all, the hosting, that they identified that there are groups within the council, staff members, who would willingly come over and help for an hour or two. Of course, that would be in the area of the CE to support, but that could be a way of helping internally to fulfil that. And I suppose I was looking at it from a Māori lens, manaakitanga, our hosts, of those we're hosting. And I think that, if anything, that's just something I could leave, that we could look for ways of doing that. And also, one of the things I think would be helpful if we all had access to what would be the audio-visual promotion of our city, because at the time we were scurrying looking for it and we couldn't find it, just due to someone being away sick, but it did leave us in the lurch for a little time, just a little time. But I think that there are some things that we identified through that visit that I'll raise with the CE, because I think they're more operational, but it is about the standard of the hosting when we have visitors here that I'd like to recommend. So just sharing that it was fantastic to be able to host those people, but also I know behind that Gabriel and KC are doing a whole lot of work, and it's just a team of two. So I want to acknowledge them and those that support you internally as well. Thank you. Kia ora.
Councillor Rotter, reply? Okay. All right, we'll vote, please. Passed, 15 votes for and none against. Thank you. All right, we move through to our council work schedule. And the council receiving its work schedule dated the 5th of June 2024. I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any matters arising from that? We've ticked a few off today, I see, on the front page. Councillor Wood.
Just wanted to check in with the meeting that's now scheduled for the 10th of June, if that needs to be reflected in here. Yeah, 10th of June.
That was decided after the work schedule was put in. But, yep. Administration are nodding, it'll be sorted. All right, Councillor Dennison. You need to put your...
Thank you. Question, just in regards to 26, which is the report back from the investment options, Palmerston North Airport, TBC. Have we got any update when the valuation might be completed at the very least?
Through the Mayor, just looking to connect with the CE at the airport at the moment, just on a couple of matters. So just been missing each other over the last day or so. So as soon as I get some detail, I'll email that around.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you. While we are looking into the future, number 29, review of fees and charges 25, 26. Can we expect that CLM will be engaged with earlier and we'll get some information back in a more timely manner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got the work schedule there. There's a bit on it, but we're getting through it. So I'll ask you to vote, please. Okay, something technically went wrong there. We're redoing it. It's got international relations there. No, it's the work schedule. Yep. Right, we'll vote, please. Okay, that's passed. 15 votes for and none against. All right, I'll ask the Chair of Strategy and Finance Committee to speak to his meeting of the 8th of May, 2024. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the minutes, recommendations from the Strategy and Finance Committee meeting of the 8th of May. Is this moving part 1 and part 2? Just part 1. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look for a second.
And could I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Any matters arising? There being none, we will vote, please. And that has passed. 14 votes for and 1 abstention. All right. We now move into part 2, and I'll look to recommendation that we now move into the public be excluded into part 2, the proceedings of the meeting, and it's around negotiations and privacy matters. So I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. If there's no commentary, we will vote, please. Has passed. 14 votes for and none against. All right.